Hello, my name is Gail Seiler. Thank you for joining us. I'm honored to be here on behalf of Betrayal Project USA. We are a victim led organization dedicated to exposing institutional betrayal and honoring those we've lost, and pursuing justice for crimes committed under the guise of public health, namely COVID-19. You can find out more about our work, view victim stories, and get involved with activities that we're doing by visiting our website at betrayalprojectusa.org. You can also follow us on Rumble, BitChute, and X, formerly known as Twitter, by searching for Betrayal Project USA or going to the @ that's in my signature. We do Saturday spaces in the afternoon on various topics regarding medical freedom. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with Jenny Rodriguez, who's going to talk about what happened to her mother with regard to the deadly hospital protocols in the state of Texas. Yes, Texas. So, Jenny, thank you for being here and being willing to tell your story publicly and boldly. Let's start off by telling people who your mom was, because your mom was an incredible woman.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you so much for having me be able to tell my story and share it. I always say anytime that I have the opportunity to share my mom's story, I will do it for many, many reasons. And I'll kind of go over that towards the end of my interview. But that is my mom there that you all see, very young, beautiful, very loving and caring, never met a stranger. If you saw her in the hallway or at a grocery store, she'd smile and stop and talk to you like you guys had known each other all your lives. And she was just the glue that held the family together. So, there are 4 of us kids, and 6 in all, with previous marriages and everything. But she loved us. She loved us. And when she became a grandmother, we kind of became chopped liver. And then when she became a great grandmother, that's her right there with one of my great nephews. Man, it was amazing. Those 2 were just the best of friends. And so that my mom had a heart of gold, and no one would ever be able to fill her shoes in the sense of how much love that she poured out into every single thing that she did. So, she put her, like I said, she put her heart and soul in everything and everyone. And if anybody ever needed anything, my mom would not even think twice about helping. That was her. She was very welcoming. She always welcomed anybody and everybody into her home. One of the things that I loved and miss about my mom is on the weekends, she would send a picture of something that she cooked in our family chat. And she'd say, hey, come over. I made this. And so we'd go over there and eat, fresh Mexican food. Who doesn't love Mexican food? So it was fresh, made from scratch. So that made it even better. And the fact that my mom made it. So she loved to have fun. She was the life of the party. Anytime we had gatherings, you can guarantee my mom was walking around with her camera, taking pictures, taking video, and sharing that with the family later on. And so we would just get laughs of all the pictures, because you can almost guarantee that she was going to catch someone with food, taking a fork of food, food to their mouth. And
Is that mom?
Yeah, she was that mom. And 9 times out of 10, it was my son that always got that. And so he would always be like, Mama, why do you always get me? You always get me whenever I'm stuffing my face. So, but that was just her. She knew nothing but fun. So that's something that, I miss. I love having conversations with her. And, sometimes she would just show up at my door, early in the morning with her mail. And she's like, hey, I got all this mail. Can you go through my mail and tell me what's good and what's not? I did that for her all the time. So, that was my mom. And so she worked for CHRISTUS Trinity Mother Francis Hospital. She was there for, well over 18 years, maybe 20. And she retired. And I think it was 2019, I believe.
Okay.
And yeah, so she'd been there for a long time. She saw it transition from a small, hospital, and then when CHRISTUS bought Mother Francis, and so she just saw this hospital just bloom, and so she retired. But then she got sick. She got sick in September of 2021, and so I kind of like to go into how all that took place.
Mm-hmm.
So in September, she was actually taking care of my two sisters who also had COVID. And I believe that's how she contracted COVID. And so one of my sisters ended up having to go to the hospital. I have a special needs sister. She had to go to the hospital the day before my mom went in. And they admitted her. They admitted my oldest sister. And because my mom was sick, I had to step in as temporary guardian and kind of assist with her care. And so then my mom got sick really bad. Like oxygen was, low 70s. And we told her, we're like, Mom, you need to go to the hospital. And she refused to go. She said, I do not want to go.
Did she say why?
Well, she never said why. But looking back with someone that worked at the hospital for so long, I am sure that you saw and heard things that, you just can't ever erase. And so we finally convinced her to go. And that's something that I think that one of the things that will bother me forever is the fact that, we made her go. But I'm trying to just, learn and deal with the fact that I can't live with that guilt, because I had complete trust in the medical system that when we took my mom to the hospital, they were going to take care of her. Right. Not only because she worked for them for so long, but because that is their job. That is they took an oath to help and to do no harm. So
now, was your sister in the same hospital?
They were, yes. She and my mom were both in the same hospital, different portions of the hospital, but in the same hospital. So during my lunch, I would run from one end of the hospital to the other to check on them. And, with my sister's team of doctors, I did mention ivermectin. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about ivermectin now. Back then in 2021, not a lot of people heard about it. And same thing with the medication, remdesivir and budesonide and Ativan and just a whole list of other drugs. But now I think if you were to mention a lot of drugs, then a lot of people would know exactly what you mean.
I think it's becoming more well known.
Absolutely. And so my sister's team of doctors didn't oppose to me, to ivermectin. And I remember signing a waiver for my sister to get ivermectin, but I don't know if she ever truly got it. And I just remember the charge nurse talking to me, and she looked at me eye to eye and she said, Jenny, if you have ivermectin, bring it up here and give it to your sister. She said, but don't let anybody see you. Just sneak it in and give it to her. So I did. I had, it was in pill format. So I went in and snuck it in. And when I would visit my sister, I would have her take it. I unfortunately did not have enough for my mom. But I thought, man, if my sister's team of doctors are okay with my sister getting ivermectin, maybe my mom's doctors will agree to it. But when I went to visit my mom, I would write, ivermectin 12 milligrams on her board, on her dry erase board. And by this point, she, of course, was admitted, and they had her on the high flow names, BiPAP and everything. And so I would tell her, Mom, if you can't talk because you're so out of breath, point to that board when the doctor comes in and tell them you want to get on ivermectin. And when I would come back the next day and visit her, I would ask her, did you talk to the doctor about ivermectin? And she would nod yes. And I said, what did they say? And she'd kind of pull her mask off so that I could hear her, because the oxygen was just blowing crazy. intense in her face. So I couldn't, it was, her voice was muffled. You couldn't understand. So she kind of pulled her mask away and she said, he told me I don't need it. And I thought, man, why would he say that she doesn't need it? I don't understand.
Did they give her budesonide?
No. That was, knowing what I know now, that was something that, I would have also pushed for, but they didn't give her that as well. And so, I also remember them, before admitting her, asking if she was vaccinated. They asked if she got the COVID vaccine, and I said no. And then they go down the line of, okay, well, did you get the flu vaccine? No. And then so we kept answering no to all these vaccine questions. And finally I told him, I was like, we don't take any vaccines. And the nurse kind of was like, oh, she kind of rolled her eyes like, well, this is September, flu season's around the corner. And I said, we don't take
any vaccines
that
aren't actually vaccines. So do you think that then they treated her differently?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did they treat her differently based on that question?
Well, for one, when she was admitted, I specifically asked them to call me and let me know, to keep me updated on what they were doing. I said, I don't want you guys to make any medical decisions without my consent, because with my mom, I feel like my mom wasn't really in her right mind. She wasn't able to think clearly and make any decisions because of her oxygen being so low. So I specifically told them, call me before you guys do anything. And they didn't, and I remember even writing it on a sticky note. I wrote my name and my phone number, and I said, this is my name, this is my number, call me. Never got a call. So,
I want to ask you before you move forward. So your sister and your mom were both in the hospital, and obviously your sister's disabled, so she had to they had to let you, of course, be with her because of the Americans with Disabilities. Was your mom ever isolated?
So in the first, I want to say the first week or so, they didn't say that I could come in and see her. But I think the one thing that really helped me is the fact that my job requires that I wear medical scrubs. And if we think back to the COVID, there were so many traveling nurses coming in and out of the hospital.
Sure.
And then if you guys remember, they also had people standing at the door taking your temperatures, asking you all the questions. Have you traveled? Do you have, this, and this? And so they had an older gentleman that was checking everybody's temps and asking all the questions. And because I was going on my lunch break every single day and I was in my scrubs, he thought I was a traveling nurse.
And just let you in.
And he just let me in. He never checked my temperature, never asked the questions. He just let me in. So I feel like that was a blessing. Now that I've heard so many people share their stories and how their loved ones were isolated and they weren't allowed in the room and they were only allowed to look at them through the little bitty window, through the hospital door or in the windows of their room. And I feel like it was somewhat of a blessing to be able to be with my mom every day, even though it was just for a few minutes during my lunch break. Cause I was running from one end to the other to check on both my mom and my sister. But I feel like wearing scrubs allowed me the opportunity. Yeah. And I feel like had I not been wearing my scrubs, they would not have allowed me to go back. And I say that because when I took my mom to the hospital and they were fixing to wheel her out of the waiting room into the triage area, I was following them, just assuming I was going to go back. And the nurse stopped me.
Okay.
Yep. She did. She stopped me and she said, you can't go back here. And I thought, that's really dumb because I told her, I was literally just here yesterday with my sister.
Right.
She has special needs. I go to her room every single day. I'm exposed to it. I'm good. And no, she refused. So had I not been wearing scrubs, I would not have been able to go back.
Yeah, I think you're right. So how long was your sister in the hospital?
So my sister was in the hospital for about I don't know, 2 weeks maybe.
Okay.
Yep.
So 2 weeks of your mom's stay, she was okay.
Mhm.
Um, and she survived, and you gave her
Right.
ivermectin.
Yep, she was. She did end up going on the ventilator. And the difference between my mom and my sister was, again, going in to see my sister, even on the ventilator, they were proning her. So they were turning her, you know, however many hours. And so one time I would see her on her belly, one time I would see her, on her back. And so just a way different outcome for the both because of the care that my sister got with her team of doctors versus what my mom got.
So tell us about the care your mom got.
So the kind of care that my mom got was during the time that she was admitted, the admitting physician said that my mom was not a candidate for a drug called remdesivir because her liver function test came back high. So her numbers were high. And it specifically states in her records that because her LFTs were elevated, she's not a candidate for remdesivir. And it says, and I quote, per hospital guidelines.
Okay.
But 2 days later, Dr. Dendy came in and signed on to my mom's care, and he ordered the drug, and she was given remdesivir. And that's whenever, I started noticing a change that I didn't expect to see because I saw my sister's outcome, and I thought, if we just get mom to where sister is as far as the numbers on her, on her monitors and everything, then mom can go home. But it didn't turn out that way. My mom took a major, major dip in. I remember getting a call on October 5th from the nurse that said, "Hey, your mom, we were trying to change your mom's linen and her heart rate shot up. So I'm going to put you on speakerphone. Maybe she hears your voice. We can get that heart rate to come down." And I stayed on the phone for her on the speaker phone for about 20 minutes. And you can tell my mom still had that BiPAP just blowing in her face because I could hardly understand her. But I would talk to her, try to calm her down. And then finally the nurse took me off speaker and she said, "We're going to have to ventilate." And I said, I don't understand. At that time, I didn't know anything about why they were doing that. I know that they did it, with my sister, but she was on it for a few days and then she came off. So I'm like, I don't understand why you're doing this for my mom. It doesn't make sense to me. And they said, well, if we can't sedate her and put her on a ventilator, she's going to have a heart attack or she's going to have a stroke. She's going to die. So, they were telling me all these scary things. So I didn't know at the time. So I thought, okay, well, if you guys say that this is going to help her, then I guess, we can. So the day that she went on the ventilator was the day that my sister was discharged.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yep.
And, and I'm assuming your sister didn't realize that she was in the hospital. Yeah.
No.
Right.
Nope. Had no idea. And, so they had my mom on the ventilator for a total of 43 days.
43 days. Yeah. So, and I'm going to pull up that picture too, but
she was on the ventilator for 43 days. And if you'll look at that picture right there, you can see how her cheeks were starting to, sink in. The blood on her tubes were just dried blood everywhere. I remember using like Vaseline and a Q-tip and rubbing that under her lip, in between the tube and her lip, to try to loosen the dry blood because it was stuck to her lips. And so, you can, it was horrible. I didn't understand why they were doing the things that they were doing to her. It was just totally different type of care that my mom was getting than what I witnessed my sister getting. And I thought, why is this happening? Because they're in the same hospital.
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make sense. But, knowing what I know now, I know that the protocols changed drastically changed from the time that my sister was in the hospital to when my mom was put on the ventilator. Because looking at my sister's records, remdesivir was never mentioned. Nothing like that was ever mentioned. And it was repeatedly mentioned in my mom's records, along with a list of other medications like, paralytics and insulin. And that was something else that I didn't understand. Like, why was my mom getting insulin injections? She's not diabetic. She was never diabetic. So, just
What did they say about that?
I remember asking one nurse about that. She came in to give mom an injection in her stomach, and mom's stomach was bruised from all the injections. And she just looked at me in the face and she said, well, honey, she said, the reason why your mom's getting this is because of all the drugs and everything that's been pumped into your mom's body. My mom was 5'2" and she was like 120 pounds. She was tiny.
Yeah.
And she wasn't one to take medications. First of all, my mom was holistic. She took supplements.
Right.
So when you're introducing a lot of these poisonous medications and all this toxic stuff, my mom's body was it was not having it. And I noticed that every time they administer, drugs, she would tell you, looking at the numbers on her monitor. And I would be like, she doesn't like that. She doesn't like this. Look at the numbers on her monitor. So you just knew that her body did not adapt to this at all. So, she ended up with sepsis and, she had pneumonia. She had pneumothorax. So they, being on the vent, it blew, holes in her lungs, and she had a PICC line put in her neck. And then, her neck was swollen I'm not sure if it was from the vent blowing so much air. So, it was just crazy to me, but her little body couldn't take it anymore. And so she eventually passed away in November of 2021. And I feel that, knowing what I know now, I feel that they were just looking at dollar signs with my mom. She was, Medicare aged, and, I think they just wanted to bill as much as they could. And, but even though she was only 66, she still had so many years left to live of her life. And I'm just not sure if these doctors felt empowered by playing God of who they chose to save, or if they just cowered down and took orders as if they had no backbone to stand against what they know is wrong by using the hospital protocol, and going against that and saving people's lives. So, and then years, we're going into our 4th year. And so now I'm learning that there were, a few other people that lost their loved ones in the same hospital. And so over the years, I'm learning that it's not just us who lost someone from the hospital protocol. There were several people who did. And so I took it upon, myself to do some research and some digging, and found, an organization, and they were, giving a lot of hope, and had a couple of attorneys who were offering to help file pro se, because trying to find an attorney, it's very hard trying to find an attorney who would even take a case such as this. And so I, with the assistance of a couple of attorneys, I tried to file pro se, and preserve her statute while I continue to, hang on to hope of finding an attorney that would be willing to take her case. But then I've learned now that there's the PrEP Act, and in Texas we have the tort reform, and
lots of it, right?
Yep. So much of that's given these doctors and hospitals full immunity to be able to do basically whatever they want, and take our loved ones from us, and not be held accountable in the legal aspect. But I do know that even though we may or may not see justice here in this life, but they'll all have to stand before God one day, and He's the ultimate judge and decision maker. So they'll all have to stand before Him. But I now, I'm taking care of my special needs sister who's 50 now, and it's tough for her because, like I said, we're going into 4 years of losing mom. And, there are just some days where she sits and she cries because she knows, and we can ask her, we ask her, do you know what happened to mom? And she'll tell you. And she said, yes, she went to the hospital. They were supposed to save her, but they didn't. That's mom wearing her uniform for work. But my sister will say they were supposed to save her. Doctors are supposed to help, and they didn't. And she knows that I'm a part of Betrayal Project USA.org. And the organization. And so she'll ask me, are you guys going to get them? Are you going to get them? Are they going to go to jail? And so it's very hard to explain to her, being special needs, how all of it works. But she does know that I am a part of an amazing organization, and we are doing everything that we can, first and foremost, to raise awareness,
because people don't understand. So let's talk about, I'm gonna pull up a couple of pictures here. So there's this dehumanization aspect of that. So I'm gonna pull up this. If you're squeamish and you're watching this video, I'm gonna pull up a picture I'm gonna pull up two pictures that are pretty hard to look at, right? Okay, so just want to warn people.
Warning before you do that. There's some graphic content that's fixing to come up. So
it's going to come up right now.
Yeah.
So this is the picture of your mom.
Yes.
When they were trying to wake her up, or
they were trying to wean her off sedation, because they felt like at that time we were getting close to the magic numbers of what was on the ventilator. There was a series of things that were on the ventilator, and according to this specific hospital, these numbers had to be, in this certain way in order for them to come off sedation and then taken off the ventilator. And for my mom, they were actually going to trach her. So this is her trying to come off of sedation. And again, look at her cheeks and it's just that's not my mom.
Very,
yeah.
Very
compared to pictures before, that doesn't look like my mom.
And then these I'm going to pull up, and they're very graphic, but this is the neglect people talk about, the neglect and the dehumanization.
Yeah.
This in and of itself
is
pure neglect.
It is. I was going through my chart and was scrolling through, and I saw that picture, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? I had no idea that my mom had bed sores until I saw that picture. And so this first picture with the nurses in their gloves, that's them laying her on her right side. So you can see the catheter. You can see how swollen she is. But that black hole is the bed sore.
And all the blood coming out and on the feet there. So that does not happen overnight.
No.
That is, anybody who knows bed sores, you notice the redness starting, and then you treat it, and you make sure you're turning people. That is neglect.
Yes. I remember asking them when she was ventilated, I said, are you guys going to prone her? Because I remember my sister they were proning my sister. So at that time, I kind of knew a little bit about how you should, be treated. And they said, well, we don't have the doctor's orders at this time. And I thought, why would a doctor need to order it? You're the nurse. You're supposed to advocate for the patient. You should know that you can't just leave them lying in the same position.
Right.
Let's be mindful. My mom was in the hospital for 53 days. She was on the ventilator for 43. And not one time did they turn her on her belly. Not once.
Not once. Oh my gosh. And they were hardly turning her in different positions. I mean, you're supposed to, I think the standard is like 1.5 to 2 hours. You're supposed to turn because they can't turn themselves because they're basically sedated to the point that they can't move. Right.
Yep.
So
she was sedated and she was on a paralytic. And again, I don't understand that.
Yeah, you have to. That's why I say it's like purely neglect.
Mm-hmm.
The other picture I want to pull up. You put this together.
Yes.
Talk about this. How you put this together for the staff, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's actually us in the waiting room. My niece and my son got together and brought a poster board with all of these things, pictures and everything. And we basically wanted the staff and the doctors who came in my mom's room. This is a trifold board. So, we stood it up in her room. We wanted them to see her as how we know her or knew her.
Mm-hmm.
This is my mom. These are her hobbies. She loves to dance. She loves music. She has a green thumb. I don't have a green thumb. I kill plants, but my mom could make anything grow. She loved to cook. We listed all of her kids and her grandkids and her great grandkids. And then, a lot of people knew her as Mama. So even though she was my mom, I still said, hey, Mama's coming over, or Mama called, because that's just how everybody, knew
Mm-hmm.
her. And she had, like I said, so many friends and everything. And so we wanted them to see her as a human being. And we also wanted them to know what she looked like before she went into the hospital. Because when you take the pictures of what she was like in the hospital versus these pictures, she looks so different.
Right.
And
I like how you included the one in her work uniform.
Yep.
And she worked there for 20 years. Hey guys, she's one of you. Don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when people saw that particular picture, a lot of them would come in, and even the doctor, he goes, oh my gosh, that's your mom? And I said, yes. And he said, and I'll never forget, the doctor said, her area, the area where she kept her things, because she was in housekeeping, he said her cart and all her cleaning stuff, he said it was right around the corner from my office. He said, so every day that I was in my office with my door open, she would walk by and she would stop and talk to me, or she would smile and wave and ask how I was doing. He goes, I remember your mom.
Yeah.
And he said, I cannot believe this is your mom. He said, because this doesn't look like her here laying in the bed.
That's right. That's right. So.
And, he wasn't the only one. There were other people that came in. The respiratory therapist, oh my gosh, yeah. Her name was Nina. I'll never forget. She and her husband were both RTs. And she goes, oh my goodness, I used to work with your mom before CHRISTUS bought Mother Francis, and it was just Mother Francis. I used to work with her. And she said, I remember her. She said she and my husband would take a break and go get coffee. They would sit in the break room and make coffee and drink coffee and sit down and talk. So a lot of people, the nurses came in, they recognized her pictures, and they couldn't believe it. And then once the word got out, people started coming into her room before their shift or at the end of their shift, because they didn't know she was there. And they're like, we had no idea she was here. How long has she been here? I remember when she got transferred from the main hospital to long-term care, which was in a different portion of the hospital. A lot of the people moved to that area when CHRISTUS bought it because they didn't want to work for CHRISTUS, and now I see why. But they came in and they're like, oh my gosh, we can't believe this. If we would have known, they said, if we would have known she was at the main hospital, we would have begged for her to be transferred here immediately, and we would have gotten her well, and we would have sent her home. But they didn't know that she was over there. And by the time she was transferred over, there was no coming back from what they'd done to her at the main hospital.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting because a lot of people do, they spend a lot of time when their loved one is in the hospital trying to show them that they're human,
mm-hmm.
the humanity, and it's unfortunate that that's not a given, and it doesn't always work.
No, they just, unfortunately, they don't see people as human in the hospital. It's just another room number. It's just another illness. It's just, another way to file insurance and make money.
Yeah.
So you don't see them as humans.
So all this time, like, that your mom was in the hospital, there were tons of things you had to do, right? Like, you had to advocate for your mom, your sister, your sister needed caring for.
Yep.
All of these things going on at the time, or at any point during that time, were you like, something's not right?
Yes. I had a gut feeling. Just, I don't know, sometimes you just have that gut feeling when something is not right. And my mom always said, always listen to your gut. Your gut instincts are, usually spot on. And during the entire time, I just felt like something was off. Something wasn't right. And then I had my sister's, the way that she was treated in the hospital. So I kind of had that to kind of go off of. And it was just so different. And I just could not wrap my head around why they were doing this to my mom and why they were going in this route and going with this protocol versus what they did with my sister. It was just, but I just felt it in my gut from the very beginning. Something wasn't right. And it all started when the nurse told me I was not allowed to go back with my mom into the triage area.
Which didn't make sense. Because first of all, you brought her. I mean, you were just in a car together, right? Like, it's like, I mean, with air filtration system that is nowhere near what's in the hospital. So, like, it was kind of, that always struck me as bizarre, right?
Yep.
So you drove her, you were and then of course being with your sister. So yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Nope.
At what point did you say, so was the whole family there when she passed? And
so at that point, like I said, she had been transferred over to the other facility that was still within the hospital. And that's when everybody, like I said, recognized her and they wished that they'd have known. And they actually allowed me to spend the night. So I was spending the night with my mom every night. And when she was transferred there, they allowed us to have someone with her every hour on the hour. So I made up a sign-up sheet, and from 7 a to 7 p, every hour somebody was with her. And so I was actually staying with her the night that she passed. I'd just gotten there. And I realized that there was some noises that were going on, and it wasn't anything that I wasn't familiar with. I could tell that she needed to be suctioned because she was still on the ventilator. And I remember going out and finding the respiratory therapist, Nina, that had worked with mom before. And I'm like, hey, Nina, I kind of waved her down in the hallway. I was like, hey, my mom needs to be suctioned. And she's like, okay, I'll be right there. So I go in the room, and then Nina follows. And when she starts, suctioning all the stuff from mom, it was blood,
Oh, wow.
a bunch of blood coming out. And she looked at me and I looked at her, and the look that she gave me, I will never forget it, because it was a look of, this isn't good. So she put the suction tube down, and she rushed out of the room. And then at that point, my mom's number started to drop, and there were machines beeping like crazy. And then that's whenever people started coming in, nurses, the RTs, and they started bagging her. So a lot of people don't know what bagging is, but it's just when you're manually,
An ambu bag. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because the reason why they were bagging her is because before she was transferred, they kept pushing a DNR on my mom. And looking at my mom's records from the very beginning when she was admitted, she refused DNR. She
Mm-hmm.
said, no, I'm fully resuscitate,
Mm-hmm.
not doing a DNR. But before they transferred her to the other facility, they talked me into signing a DNR, because we came so close twice to losing her. And the crazy thing about that is that every time I would get a call, it was always late at night.
Yeah. Right.
When they would call and say, your mom's not going to make it, you need to come say your goodbyes. And thinking back, I thought, what were they doing to my mom at night? It always seemed to happen at night. So I don't understand what they were doing or what they were not doing that they should have been doing, to where we almost lost her twice. But they talked me into signing a DNR. And so that's why they bagged her. They weren't doing any chest compressions or anything like that. And the RT was the one that was, bagging mom. And so I remember standing at the left side of her bed, and I got down really close to her ear, because I have heard that when someone is passing, they can still hear.
Mm-hmm.
And so as she is passing, I get in her ear and I tell her, that it's okay for her to go. I told her, I was like, you fought hard. You were here for a long time. I know that you're tired. Your body is weak. It's tired. It's ready to go. And I said, we're going to take care of sister. So, just know that I promise that she's going to be taken care of. And that was the last thing that I said before she passed.
Yeah. Because that was obviously one of those things she would have worried about, right?
Yeah.
And I know you, so you've kept that promise, because you're like the best sister ever.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
You definitely take care of people, Jenny. That's the one thing I love about you.
But
So
that was really hard. That was tough. And, so they gave me a few minutes. I remember, they gave me a few minutes alone. And when I say a few minutes, I literally mean a few minutes, because it was less than like 10 minutes. And then the chaplain came in with the death certificate form. And I remember looking at her form, because I wanted to know what they were going to put as cause of death. And it was acute respiratory failure. It was hypoxia, and then it was sepsis.
Sepsis, okay.
Yep.
Did they put COVID on it?
Mm-mm.
Interesting.
They didn't put COVID on it, but once I signed off on that, they leave. And then that's whenever I kind of had to and that's whenever I realized my mom is gone. Mm-hmm. Like, my mom she literally just left this physical world. And so I started calling family, and they started coming in one by one. And I remember going to the funeral home, when they called and said that her death certificates were ready to get picked up. And I sat in my car in their parking lot and I opened up the envelopes and I took the death certificate out and they changed her cause of death. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
They listed COVID-19 as the number one, because there's like 3 or 4 things that you can list as cause of death, and they changed it. They put COVID-19 as number 1.
Because everybody gets paid if it says COVID.
That's right.
Everybody gets paid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. And so since that time, number one, this has had a huge impact on your life.
Yes, absolutely.
It's life changing. You never go back to normal. So
No.
two things. Talk about, like, at some point you're like, wow, they killed my mom. When did that realization happen?
So it was actually probably about a week or so after she passed. That gut feeling again that we were talking about earlier. That gut feeling came back to me, and it's like, something is wrong. You need to get her records. You need to look through her records. Something is wrong. And I remember 2 of her sisters came to visit me, and I told them, I was like, I don't think this shouldn't have happened. This should not have happened. And they kind of looked at me, and I said, Grandma and Grandpa lived to be in their 80s and 90s. Mom had longevity in her blood. She should still be here. She was only 66. I said,
Yeah.
this shouldn't happen. I said, I don't think this is right. Something is wrong. And I told him, I said, I'm going to get her records and I'm going to go through them and I'm going to look. And so it was about a week or so after, whenever I just felt like something was wrong.
And she was a healthy woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. So yeah. So you went and got her. You went and got the medical records, and what was the thing that made you say, "Wow, I'm right. Something's wrong." Right.
Several things, actually. First, on the first page when she was admitted, they said she wasn't a candidate for the protocol,
and she got it.
Yeah. 2 days later. And then it was the fact that they listed on her records consistently that she was not vaccinated. Mm-hmm. And then I also found later on, this was probably, I don't know, maybe a year or so after she passed, because when you go back and you read through things, there are other things that kind of pop out that didn't pop out initially. They restrained her.
When she was already chemically restrained, they physically restrained her?
Yes. They restrained her. I saw that, and it noted that she was, they said she restrained patient because she was trying to fix her medical gown. And I thought,
first of all, she's on paralytics, so I don't know how she did that, but just, maybe her fingers were moving against the cloth, and even though she was on paralytics, that's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's really dangerous to touch your medical gown while it doesn't seem like it could cause a problem.
Exactly. So, those are just some of the things. And then I started reading that she was put on paralytics and that she was, sedated with things, she was given things like Ativan, she was given things like propofol. And I thought, wait a minute, isn't that what Michael Jackson died from? Like an overdose of propofol? Yeah. And then I started reading all these other things that I started looking up. Why would you use these drugs? And they were more for like surgeries, and they're not supposed to be on certain drugs for a certain amount of time. But I thought, why would they just continuously give her these drugs when they're not supposed to be on them for very long, or not on them at all? Morphine. And I thought that this just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Like morphine literally takes, what did Warner Mendenhall said, it literally took Grace's breath away. The morphine makes it hard to breathe. So here's drugs that make it hard to breathe. And then they're like, well, we got to ventilate because they're having a hard time breathing, and then they give them more of the drugs. So, so you started going down this path, and at what point were you like, I'm going to get involved? Like, because we've been involved in this fight for a little while, right? So, I mean, we were both down in Tyler to do our interviews on that on that bus on the CHD Children's Health Defense bus, where the woman who interviewed right after you, her mom was killed on the same day in the same hospital. So, again,
that's whenever I started learning, and I'm still finding people that lost loved ones at the same hospital. But to meet, the young lady that I met after I did my interview on the Children's Health Defense, she died. Her mom died the same day at the same hospital. That gave me chills. We both lost our mom on the same day at the same hospital from the same protocol. So once I started reading Mom's records, I went on, back then it was Twitter, now it's X, but I started researching and trying to see if there was anybody else on that social platform who would mention remdesivir. So I just typed in #remdesivir, and that's whenever I started seeing
all the people.
And then I started seeing some of their hashtags of hospital protocols. So then I put in #hospital protocol, and that right there just opened up a massive hunt for me to do more research. And then I started reading about certain lawsuits that were filed at that time in California, and this was going to be their first remdesivir lawsuit and all that stuff. So that's about the time that I realized that this was not an accident.
Yeah.
This was done on purpose, and it was done for profit.
Yeah.
And looking now, if you drove in my area, there's 2 major hospitals here. They are both getting new things, new buildings, construction, parking garages. And I thought that is where all of this hospital protocol money is
going for.
It's funding. That's what it's funding.
Yeah. I know. I'm in Texas too, and the hospital that tried to kill me added a second heliport and 5 more floors. So, I mean, it's insane.
I feel like my mom's name should be on part of the hospital that like she paid for that. Like her name should be on that. She should have a wing because you guys took her from us just so that you could have that. So that's what I've learned. And that's a picture of us at her memorial. We lit lanterns and released them. She died in November of 2021, and we had her cremated. And so we had her memorial in December, first week of December, because we wanted to give everybody enough time that were from out of town to be able to make it. Some of her old coworkers and her friends were there, and family that were from out of town. So we wanted to plan this very special memorial for her. And
she was a loved woman, right? I mean,
yeah, she was amazing. And we every single day I wake up every single day and I'm just reminded that she's not here. Because there are some things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to tell my mom this, or I want to share this with my mom, and I can't because she's not here. So she's definitely very special.
Yeah. And sometimes I know it's heavy because I know you, and I know it's heavy. And even though it's heavy, you still fight, and you still try to bring about accountability and all that stuff. And it's
absolutely. I always tell people anybody who wants to listen, I will share. I think I said in the beginning, I share my mom's story because I want to raise awareness, because believe it or not, there are still people out there who don't know, or they're in denial and they don't want to believe that this could happen. It's happening here in the United States, very much so. There are just so many people who lost a loved one. So that's my biggest thing, is I'll share my mom's story and tell anybody who will listen. But to raise awareness so that it doesn't happen to their
Somebody
loved
else.
ones.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because it's still happening, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, we see it happening. We see
Mhm.
people reaching out to us for help
Yep.
and all of that. So
Yeah, I do. I share her story to raise awareness. I share her story because she was a human being. She was loved, and I think people need to know, if they can't meet my mom in person, they need to meet her
that's right.
by knowing who she
And
was.
and you serve as one of the 11 board members on
Yes.
Betrayal Project USA. You were a founding member. So um, just give people we hope other people will put their stories in and
Yep.
do it and tell their stories boldly everywhere. But what are some of the top reasons that you're in this battle, and that it's important for this organization to achieve its mission?
Absolutely. Yeah. So several reasons. One is, again, to raise awareness. One is to also be of support.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they almost killed you and they took my mom. So we know firsthand what
Yeah.
what they're capable of doing. We know the trauma from it. And so people need support.
Yeah.
They
It
do.
leaves behind carnage. Like
Yeah.
we see the carnage. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. The
Absolutely.
right
They need
families.
support. And so I'm honored to be a member of the board, to be able to be an ear, or, I can't physically be there for you to cry on my shoulder, but you can cry on the phone with me and I'll cry with you. Just support alone is so important, to be able to talk to somebody who's been through what you've been through.
And doesn't think you're crazy.
Exactly. We understand, we get that.
Yeah.
So, I'm so blessed to be a member of the board, because I also want to hold people accountable. The people that are responsible for this, they need to be held accountable. And so we need to just be able to blast this on every social platform that we can, to let them know, like, hey, we know what you guys did and we're not going away.
Yeah.
So, and we also want people to know that we are here. They can come, to us, and not only for support, but to document and share their stories, share your experience. How did you feel? What happened to your loved one or your best friend, or as a survivor? We want to hear your stories.
Yeah. And get them out there.
Yeah,
We have to change public perception, right? I mean,
absolutely.
there's a confirmation bias out there that is still, it, was perpetrated by the media, and it still continues to live on. And that's that COVID did all these horrible things and killed all these people, and it was the protocols, right? It wasn't the comorbidities, it wasn't the a novel virus. It was indeed these protocols, and we can prove it with enough stories coming forward and enough survivors. People who did survive need to come forward and say what they knew, whistleblowers, all of that. So
And and also learning, as we're hearing and sharing stories, and listening to, people who need support, the similarities
yeah.
of our stories are insane.
Yep. And on betrayalprojectusa.org, you can find the Deadly Hospital playbook, which lays out the modus operandi for the hospitals. It was very much orchestrated. It was very much planned. It wasn't accidental. All of those things happened across the nation, every single state, and quite honestly, in some other countries. But it was very much, um, they all said the same things. They used the same language, the same everything. It was like it's like Mockingbird on steroids, right? So it was all very carefully laid out across the nation.
Yep. So I
So
love that we do have the playbook on our website. You guys ought to, check it out. Anybody that's watching this or listening to this, check it out, because you'd be amazed at what you're going to read on there. And I guarantee you there, if you know someone that died from the protocol or, survived, there's going to be something on there, whether it be one thing or all the things listed in that playbook. There's going to be something on there that you're going to be like, oh my goodness, that is exactly what that happened to someone.
exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In coming soon, we're going to put out some resources too that, you can use to protect yourself if a loved one or you has to go to the hospital. One of the things I would really, Laura Bartlett put together a I do not consent form.com, which it's not a medical POA. It is an absolute, it's like a reverse informed consent. They took the idea from Jehovah Witnesses who can't get blood. That's why it's, stands up in court. So her site is I do not consent form.com. Those forms will work. And then, of course, there's the FLCCC protocol. Make sure, if I'd have known I could have had all those medications ahead of time, and oxygen, I never would have made it to the hospital. But I didn't know at the time. Now I do, and I'm always stocked and prepared. Any other last words of wisdom you have for people?
I would just encourage you guys to go on our website, betrayalprojectusa.org. It is, still under construction, but I'm very excited to be able to have that available. There is a contact, tab on the website that you can fill out if you want to share your story. And, I'm hoping, I was telling Gail before the interview, I'm hoping to be able to be available so that I can help with the interviews. I would love to speak to anybody out there who's listening or watching and have you share your story with me. It would be an honor to be able to hear your story and to document that. But definitely visit our website and look at the playbook. Like I said, we are very very excited to be here for everyone who needs support. And that's pretty much all that I'm here for. And because I did promise my mom justice, whether it be in this lifetime or before the doctor is in the hospital, people stand before God, justice will be served.
Exactly. And you can connect with us on social media from the website as well. And you can find me on Twitter. I'm Huckleberry's wife, or at betrayal_PROJ. How can they find you on Twitter?
At Blue Hawaii, and that's spelled BLUHAWII 26.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
And I want to pop up these two little things that Ellie made for you. Ellie is on Facebook. She is kind of or dead serious, kind of not. She's very creative, and she creates a lot of very thought-provoking media. And her story is on our site about her brother. But one of the things that she does is pixels and pulses, and she made some for Jenny.
Look at that. I love it. My son can get that one last hug. That would be so awesome.
Yep, and I'll send these to you. And then she also created this one, which I love too.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Ellie. If you're listening, thank you so much. I love that.
Yeah.
So I'm able to share that with my family.
She is a sweet woman. All right. Well, thank you, Jenny. And
thank you.
Keep telling your story.
Absolutely. I will keep telling it till the day I die. Thank you so much for having me on.